Then you have to devise a control risk around it. What do? You say you are under meditation. Right? So, it is very important to understand that when it comes to computers, they come with certain inherent risks. For example, no power, no computer. No links, no computer. If there is a parameter error, entire thing is wrong. These are inherent risks with the computing technology. You need to understand this much. I am sure all of you are reasonably capable of understanding that much. Yes? Say yes. Good. Okay. So, evaluate the inherent risks. Control risk is how do you take care of the inherent risk so that they become predictable, and then assess your, because this inherent risk and control risk will have a direct impact on your audit risk. You understand the difference? Somebody did not understand the difference? Understand, right? Okay. Then design and perform your tests appropriate to meet the audit objective. So when it comes to core banking, there are variety of flavors, as they say, vanilla, chocolate, pista, right? Similarly, in core banking, there are various flavors because these are nothing but products. Like you go for search engines, somebody may be using Google, somebody uses Bing, right? So you can use whatever flavors, right? But all of them are search engines, right? So there can be various flavors, and you need to also understand. Let us look at some of the popular products. You need to know what kind of products are there. When I say Tally, what does it strike you? ERP, accounting software, whatever, right? Similarly, there are various software which are popular. Bislary, Inlay, right? Similar to that, there are some popular and not so popular products. In India, these are some of the popular products. The first one which is very widely popular in India is the Banks 24, which is from TCS, which you will find implemented in State Bank of India and related, all related subsidiaries, right? The second one is FlexCube from a company called iFlex. Now, this again you will find it in various installation, various banks, right? Then we have the oldest in Indian, which is the Finacle, which is from Infosys. In fact, this was the first of the software. Now, the last one is called the Intellect Suite from Polaris. These are some of the popular software. Don't think these are the only ones, but this almost covers about 70% of the Indian banks. So if you take 70% of the Indian banks, they will be using either one or the other of these. Why it is important is, for example, can you name any other financial accounting software? Yeah? Go again? I couldn't get it. Banca. Oh, okay. Whatever it is, do you see, even though it does the basic functions, the working between Tally and that is different? So similarly, you need to orient yourself with the software the moment you get on to the branch, right? And I told you about different types of architectures. One is called the core architecture. What is called the pure core? Pure core means there is nothing at the branch at all. Only terminals, right? There is no server. Okay? So everybody, all the people whom you see at the branch are nothing but there are terminals who are connecting through the router to the central data center, right? Whereas in Finacle, the architecture is slightly different. There is a core, but there is also a local branch server. This local branch server works as the stepney. So don't think that every transaction only goes to the branch server. No. Why is it required? Their architecture says if the link gets cut for whatever reason, branch can still work. So a shadow file is created onto the local server. So even if the link gets cut for whatever reasons, they can still work on the local server, and the moment the link resumes, automatically all the transactions will get ported to the central server. Is it clear? Is it clear? So in such cases, you need to know this because there is one of the provisions in LFAR which requires you to answer on business continuity and disaster recovery. Whether backups are being taken. When it is a pure core architecture, is there anything at the branch to backup? Nothing. For example, can you back up ICI site in your system? You want for your fun, you can do it, that's different. But not for backing up, isn't it? So, when it's a pure core architecture, anyway, all the controls are at the central statutory level. So, they need to look at it. But as a branch auditor, you need to look at only the local server controls, right? Then, some of these, I told you about core and non-core software, other software. Remember that? So, these can be some of the other software. For example, your HR, payroll, especially staff loans may not be part of the core. Sundarajan was pointing to staff loans. Staff loans may even be manual, quite possible. They can be even in manual ledgers, right? Then, card systems, debit cards, credit cards, right? So, there are various, again, methods in which branches work. They will generally have a different cell which will handle the cards. While the generation of cards, the control over cards, the control of card statements is done by a completely different software. But it is integrated into the core. Is it clear? Because what is your debit card? Nothing but an extension of your banking account. So obviously it has to get integrated. Right. Then clearing systems. What is clearing? Checks, DDs, documents, right? So all this comes under the clearing system. Now you need to understand there are certain different kinds of clearing systems. One is your regular check clearing. What happens in this case? If you are giving a check to your friend and your friend is in Calcutta with another bank, another branch, this has to go through a clearing cell, right? But at the same bank, then again there is a bank level clearing. But if it is in the same place, then it may not even necessarily go through a clearing. It may just simply go through a what we call as a intra-account control. So there are various types of clearing systems, and then there are different types of clearing systems today. Something called as RTGS. Have you heard about RTGS? What is it? Very good. So real-time gross settlements system is there. Then NEFT. Yes. And check 21. Check truncation. No. In check truncation, which is recently introduced in South India also, the check does not physically travel, but only the image of the check travels, right? There are just things you need to know, but the important thing is in all clearing systems, reconciliation is a key item to be looked in audit. Is it clear? Reconciliation is a key item to be looked in audit. So you need to understand if the clearing cell has a particular balance that reconciles with the branch balance with regard to that clearing account. Is it clear? Similarly for all kinds of clearing. Then there could be treasury systems. You may not find treasury systems in most branches unless it is an overseas branch, right? Risk management, BI components generally also may not be there, but NPA, please understand, most banks are struggling with getting their NPA calculation right. So don't trust NPA calculation straight away. Just because it is computerized, it does not mean that even the provision computation may be right. You will need to do a sampling check, and you can extend the sample adequately to cover large accounts. Is it clear? Whatever Mr. Sundararajan was saying, everything, take all the large accounts, first take 25% of the sample, right? Make sure you are thoroughly checking 25% right from NPA determination to security valuation to classification, provisioning. Every aspect should be checked manually. If all your tests succeed, then you can rely upon the statement. If it does not succeed, even if you get one error, extend the sample by double. So if you have taken 5 accounts, now it extends to 10 accounts. In 10 accounts, let us say you get 2 more. Then what do you need to do? 100%. Okay. So it is very important because the NPA, the advances are a critical part of the branch audit. Now, this may be a little confusing. Don't worry about it. If you see left hand side, how many of you are able to see? No, don't worry about it. All I am trying to tell you here is, there are various channels of banking available today. You can do banking. One is going to the branch, visiting the counter, doing the transactions to the counter. Second is net banking. Third, ATM. Fourth, mobile, right? Fifth, you can even go to another bank's ATM and do a transaction, what is called a Swadhan scheme, right? And you can also go to a shop and do a debit card purchase, right? So there are so many channels, but mind you, whichever channel you operate, I need to make sure I capture the transaction before you leave. That is why this is what we call as a channel interface, which in turn will talk to the application interface, right? Application is nothing but the software, right? So it talks to that, and the centerpiece is the core. The centerpiece, you see, is the core. You will find everything here. For example, liability or retail products. What is retail product? Liability products. Can you name one liability product? Deposits, right? Deposit is a liability product. So you can have different kinds of products on this kind of deposit, Akshaya deposit, some deposit, whatever, right? Everything is deposit, right? All that products come under that. Similarly, trade finance, cash credit, bill discounting, everything comes under trade finance. So all this is coming under the core, and then you have the other software which I said, which may be outside the core. What do you have here? Fixed asset, treasury management, cash management, forex, data warehousing, AML, right? RTGS, all this could be outside. When something is outside your software, what is the problem I said you will have? When you have a different set of books, reconciliation, right? You need to ensure that whatever that system is maintaining is actually updated in the system, right? So please ensure that wherever you find such kind of external software, it is reconciled. For example, if you take, let us say your debt stock register. What is a debt stock register? Asset. Why do you call it dead stock? What is livestock then? Think about it. Okay. Now, when it comes to the overall software, there are two types of modules, right? Like in your Tally, there are modules. Your ERP, there are modules, purchase module, this module, that module. Similarly, there are module. One is called as a mandatory module, which is a must. Customer master maintenance, retail products like deposit, loans, trade finance, etc. Then clearing module, general ledger, reports. All this comes under mandatory modules. Then there could be optional modules. The bank may purchase them or may not purchase them. These can be NPA. NPA becomes a optional module. This year, Reserve Bank of India has given a directive saying that NPA should be automated as part of the core. So it becomes now a mandatory module. Then others could be ATM, RTGS, NEFT, lockers, inventory, treasury, CRM, AML, right? Some of it may look jargons, but mind you, every jargon here is a simplified common sense, right? You just need to ask what it is, okay? So when you go to the branch, please make sure you spend that time. And other things which you need to spend enough time planning, as I said, is previous year audited accounts. Before you even start for the branch, if your firm has already done the previous year audit, please do take that and go through that. It's very important. If you are being appointed for the first time for that particular bank, the moment you go to the branch, ask for the previous year accounts, obviously, right? Why is it important? You clearly know what are all the basic issues in the branch, right? Because the previous auditors would have already qualified that, or they would have given the input. So accordingly you can structure your procedures, right? Then current year branch returns is something you need to look at. Previous year's auditors report, LFAR, right? There could be internal inspection concurrent audit reports available at the branch. Please do ask for them. Unless you ask, it will not be given, right? So you should know what to ask. If you go and land up at the branch, there will be credit officer who will be assigned. He will say, sir, solunga ennala vonu. You would say, then he knows what to do with you, no? The moment you think, the first impression is the lasting impression, right? So make sure the first impression you make on the branch is one of an intelligible budding chart accountant, right? So don't make a fool of yourself, right? Otherwise, how they will treat you? They will treat you like Stepney. Don't let that happen. It's a professional self-esteem issue. How can you do that? Prepare well. You have to study and go. If you don't study and go, don't come to this profession. Simple. This profession is all about knowledge. Yeah. So make sure you are a knowledge professional, right? So study, know what is to be given, and then if there is an IS audit, ask for it. Insist on an opening meeting. This, of course, your branch, your principal will take care of that. So that in the opening meeting you can discuss. It's a minuted meeting. You have to take minutes. You discuss on what are the changes since the last year. Have there been any issues? Have there been any frauds? Right? What are the problems faced with the customers? All this can give you deep insights into the branch's way of working. Right? So you remember I discussed this? When we extend this, there are two types of controls from a systems perspective. One is called as application controls, and another is called as IT general controls, right? When you are working with your Indian Railways booking form, right, and suddenly it declares your age after you fill up, let us say age as whatever, 20, whatever, right? It says senior citizen. Oh, you feel very insulted, no? Yes or no? But you are also happy in a way. Why? If 20 is treated as senior citizen. But what is it? It's a bug in the software. That is what we call an example of application controls failure. Right? The same example I took when I said standing data parameter value. You remember that? If there is a parameter issue, it's an application controls issue. Right? So you have to be cautious about errors in the software. Don't think because it is the bank, there will be no errors in the software. No. Even though adequate controls are taken by the bank, it is still your responsibility to do a sample verification. Not that you say, no, first I'll audit all the core banking, then only I'll start audit. Not that, right? You just need to do a sample check, right? So that you get the confidence right. Suppose in the sample check, you get an error, then extend the checking, right? There are IT general controls issue. What are IT general controls? As I said, backup, right? Power, all that comes in as general controls issues. So first thing, as I told you already, is map the assertions. I already told you quite a lot of it. So each group head, see how it is getting automated, right? Then trace the transaction from origination up to the books of accounts. For example, this will help you to understand if there are any manual ledgers, right? Then expect the following. Of course, get a list of all the records maintained at the branch. There will be two types of records. One, records which are maintained within the core banking system. 80% of the records in a good branch will be always within the core banking. But there may still be certain records which are maintained manually, right? So you need to ask what are these and expect, as I said, different kinds of software and note the exceptions. For example, look at where all manual interventions are required in the software. For example, if you find that there is a separate loan ledger, it has to be entered through what is called as a direct GL entry. What is it? Repeat. A direct GL entry is like the journal entry, JV, journal voucher, right? In a financial accounting system. What is the power of a journal voucher? What's the power of a journal voucher? The journal voucher is the most dangerous tool. Yes or no? Because your cash and bank invoicing, everything goes through a structured form, right? The accounting also goes through a structured way which accounts will get affected. But a journal entry can completely change whichever account into. You can debit any account, credit any account, you can transfer balances, right? That is the most dangerous tool, and don't expect that this is not available at the branches. This is what we refer to as direct GL entries. See, in a branch, if you take a bank environment, one is the GL, which brings out your profit and loss account balance sheet. But there is an underlying subsidiary ledgers, demand loan, gold loan, vehicle finance, all these are subsidiary ledgers, similarly deposits, right? So all this integrate into the general ledger, right? So we need to understand that if there are any manual interventions in any of them, then items interface with direct GL and other exceptional methods of doing that. For example, in some cases, this RTGS, it is a clearing transaction. The clearing comes from RBI clearing cell. It comes as a file. That file has to be ported into the branch level CBS. There could be different ways of doing that. In some banks, they could do it right at a clearing cell level. That is, RBI clearing cell, they will send the transaction or CD and they will integrate it into the bank's clearing cell. So it will go into the core architecture. But in some cases, it may be through the branches. So branch receives an email or it may receive a CD. Then they have to upload this into the branch CBS before day end. Right? In some cases, it is not there now. 90% of the branches are automated. The transactions from the RTGS clearing will have to be keyed in to the core banking software. When you start keying in, what are the risks? Error, double, right? You suddenly find if you gave one check for 100 rupees, you have two debits for 100 rupees or two credits for 100 rupees. Yes? So all this could be possible. So that's the reason you need to understand what are these interfaces and also look for migration, which I already explained to you. Needless to say, keep on insisting, drop your audit plan, heads of accounts affected by the CBS, other than CBS, what are the external interfaces, areas involving significant manual intervention, heads of accounts migrated during the year, areas with issues arising from previous year, which should be through your reading of the previous year reports, fraud affected and customer complaint affected heads, right? Generally, clearing is a very, very lovely area for fraud. The another is dormant accounts, right? What's a dormant account? Inoperative account, right? An inoperative account which suddenly becomes operative, it's a cause of concern. At least you need to make sure it is authentic withdrawal, right? So you can take all that. So plan and test this based on your materiality. This I am just skipping because some of them already discussed. So what are the methods that you use in a branch audit? Nothing different from any other audit. First, interviews and observations are important. An auditor should listen more and talk less. Your words are very valuable, right? If you have talk more, listen less, branch manager will know, aha, okay. He'll take you out to the best dinner party, right? He'll also make sure he keeps on discussing, oh, ninga Indura. What is he trying to do? Unfortunately, there are some managers like this. You have to be very careful. As an auditor, when you go, you are on profession, right? Because when you start discovering all this, they might try it. No, obviously, right? They might try. So it is your job to make sure you apply the right audit principles, because tomorrow you can't say, no, and manager didn't tell me. It is your job to find out. So one is interviews and observation. Another is sampling. As I told you, sampling and give you, manager might tell you, not a single account is NPA in this branch, sir. Since I took over, everything is fantastic. You'd probably bring a garland the next day and put it to the manager. The moment the manager is saying like this, please take extra caution. Right? So extend your sampling. Right? Then review of the reports. In a computer, in a core banking system, please note down, there is something called as a reports menu or reports module. This is the auditor's best friend. Right? How many of you have done reports analysis in banks? CBS? Concurrent auditors? No? None of you? Only one? Two? Only two of you? Then you must spend some time on day one, get the help of an officer and try to understand what are the reports that can be generated from the system. There are 2-3 kinds of categories of reports which can be generated. One is called as the daily reports. What happens is, in every bank, there is something called end of day processing, EOD. What is end of day processing? when the transactions are happening during the day, they are not recorded onto the master files. Please understand. They are recorded something called the position files. Right? It is a kind of proxy. Right? So for example, yesterday's balance will be available today. You can do transactions on that. But everything has to get posted at the back end in the GL module. That happens only during the day end. So when the end of day processing occurs, every branch you will find there are reports which will get automatically dropped into the respective branch folders. You understand what I am saying? Is it clear? Not clear. One second. Please see this. A folder looks like this. These are some of the reports. I am showing you a sample folder of a particular branch, right? These are generated at day end, end of day. I told you about one category of reports called daily reports. The daily reports are a listing of all the transactions category wise that happened during the day. The second thing is exception reports. Exception reports are the auditor's greatest friend. Right? Why? Because everything that's an exception to the rule will get listed down in that report. That's what we want, isn't it? So you will find automatically many of these reports. For example, you see in this case, there could be different branch, different names obviously in your branch, but then this is just an example. I'll just open one of the file. This file name you cannot see, but then this is sanction due. Please see this. It is actually listing down sanction due NPA operative limits as on particular date. Right? So what is it listing? It is listing the account, account type, account name, what kind of customer, sanction reference and valid etc. date. Right? What can you do with such a report? One, you take the samples and verify that is true. Second, let us say you get something like this. This is bank guarantee expired report. It is you see only one entry there. What has happened here in this case? What type of liability is bank guarantee? Contingent liability. When the contingent liability, what is expiration? The bank's liability for contingency also has expired. Right? Why? Not pays the fees, not renewed the guarantee. Right? So you will be able to identify certain items like this, which is based upon date. Similarly, I am just giving you some example. We don't have the time to do all this. Right? For example, these are temporary OD files. These are temporary ODs. Now, what can you do with such a file? How to analyze this file? Export it to Excel. How to export it to Excel? Go and see internet. No great rocket science. You must learn all this. Okay? It's a very simple way to export it to Excel. Once you are into Excel, then you can do sort. Then you can do VLOOKUP and learn pivots. How many of you know pivots? Okay. How many of you actually done pivots? Knowing pivots means PYVOT. Pivot can be an extremely powerful tool, especially in a bank audit. Right? Because with so much volume of data, you can pivot the data and you can take it and then further analyze it. I am telling you, what you will achieve within half a day, you can achieve within maximum of 15-20 minutes if you know pivoting. And mind you, the quality of what you find will be superb. Right? You understand this? So please do make use of the Excel tools. Now all these reports you can generate from the branch. Sorry. So that's where we come to the use of Excel. Supposing there is a huge report and the report is not available in this folder. You can either generate this report through something called as the ad hoc report menu. What is it? ad hoc report menu, or if it is not possible, you can take the help of the data officer of the branch. Every branch has a person designated called as the data officer. What is his job? His job is to help with regard to anything from the core banking system, right? If you go and ask the branch manager, sir, where is ad hoc reports? He will say, I don't know. Does anybody else in the branch know? No. Because they may be only bothered about the day-to-day reports. But the data officer will be able to tell you everything about this. So, if you don't get this information, ask the data officer, right? Okay, also with regard to various heads of account, where it is completely automated through CBS, identify what are the key parameters. What can be the parameters like? Sanction amount, margin percentage, right? Rate of interest, service tax if applicable, TDS, right? Penal interest percentage, drawing power calculation, all this comes under the parameter workings, right? So identify the key parameters, identify variants and categorize each of these parameters, then perform a walkthrough. What does a walkthrough mean? Please take one item which is new account during the year. That is a facility sanctioned during the year, right? Walk it through right from appraisal. Right from appraisal. What is appraisal? When you give a loan application, there is an appraisal which goes through, right? It has certain terms and conditions, how it is appraised, right? Then it goes to the sanction phase, right? Then it goes to the disbursement phase, and then it goes to the monitoring phase, right? Each and every stage, please take one account in the new accounts and another in the existing standard account and also existing doubtful account, and simply trace through. See, when you are doing an audit, when you do a transaction audit, you are actually focused on checking, for example, interest rate you are checking. You are only focused on checking interest rate for 100 items, let us say, right? But in a walkthrough, what do you do? What we call as a cradle to grave walkthrough. What is cradle to grave? Every person's life you can trace from birth to death. Yes or no? Similarly, every transaction you can trace from its origin to its exit, right? So you please make sure you take one in each category and walk it through. When you walk through, you will be able to understand which of these controls are automated and which of these controls are manual. So those which are automated, you need not check volumes, and those wherever you find errors or manual issues, you need to take and focus. This way, within the stipulated time, you can do a very effective audit. Okay? And some of the parameters audit is a huge area. I am not going to cover everything, but just to tell you, for example, transactions within branch powers. First of all, you need to know what are the user rights which are assigned to people at the branch, right? So, first of all, you need to know how many people are there at the branch. How will you know how many people are there at the branch? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Attendance, more than the attendance register, there is something called as the employee headcount register. So that will contain all the people who are transferred in, transferred out, whatever recruitment doesn't take place, but who are at the branch. From that, you have to identify in the system, if there are 10 employees who are assigned at the branch, how many user ID should be there? 10 or less. There could be sub staff, isn't it? They may not necessarily require system access, right? If it is more, what's the problem? Somebody has left the branch, or there are unused IDs, generic IDs, which are not used or used possibly for fraudulent purposes. So it is very important to ensure the number of IDs should not exceed, in any case, the payroll, right? It should actually in fact have a mapping. Then maker checker configuration. What is a maker checker? Can the maker be the checker? No. By default, most of the CBS systems, maker cannot be checker. But sometimes there are overrides in certain software. Please do look out for this. If the maker and the checker are the same person, Raise an issue in the LFR and also make sure you give the examples. You need not do a complete comprehensive audit. You just take one sample. It will not take more than 10 minutes, right? Okay. Then, in many cases, password sharing is common in the branches, especially manager. In many cases, manager, if you ask him his password, he will say, I don't know. He is the person who is supposed to be sanctioning. He is the person who is supposed to be authorizing various transactions at the branch. What happens operationally is, this guy would be busy going in the field. He may be going to meet the clients, getting new business, all that. So he will depute his user ID usage to his deputy. Right? Is it okay? Why is it not okay? By the terms of his appointment and by the terms of delegation of powers of the branch, which you will be able to see from the various instructions which are in the branch, you will find it is only he who has to operate certain transactions. When it comes to system, the same thing happens. For example, in a manual environment, how will a sanction look like? Signature. But in an electronic environment, user ID, isn't it? So the user ID is as sacrimonous as the signature. You need to understand that. So if somebody is doing a user ID sharing, it's actually forgery. And it's a very important issue for an auditor to bring to the branch. Now, how do you know if the user ID is being shared? Can you find out? Yes, good point. The very important thing that you see is simply take certain samples of the payroll, the attendance register, right? And you take a log of access in the system. If you compare the two, if you find any observation wherein a user account has been accessed of the manager when the manager is not inside the branch, straight away case exists for sharing of passwords, right? Password sharing can result in a vigilance case today. So please make sure that that is highlighted if in case you come across, because that can lead to fraud. That's a problem. Okay. Then whether in agreement of books, for this you have to look at what we call as GL linkages, suspense or parking accounts. Generally, the trial balance that they give you on the date that you go, it will contain many of the nil accounts. And generally all suspense and parking accounts will read nil. Don't trust. Instead, take the GL, go to the system, take those particular, especially parking, suspense, adjustment, any of these names. Open that particular GL and see in the last 1 month if there are any unusual transactions. What does unusual transaction mean? They have transferred this balance to another account or to the zonal office, brought it back again. So on the day of closing, it will read nil, but actually it is not nil, right? So you need to insist upon this if there is a balance and see that what is the nature of entries which are there, which are pending, right? Then income parameters, interest rate parameter, global product parameter. See what happens is in interest rate, the interest rate something called as the bank's lending rate or prime lending rate. Let us say a bank has a 8% bank lending rate, right? But for various products, based upon this 8% base, it will fix the rates for deposits, it will fix the rates for credit facility, everything, right? And in that, it can also provide for cushions. For example, let us say somebody wants a personal loan. The branch might have a discretion to fix a slightly what we call as a wafer margin, right? So there are two levels of parameterization. One is at the data center level. Bank PLR is set at the data center level, but there is a possibility account level interests could be fixed at the branch level or the zonal level, right? So please do look for such parameterizations. So just take samples. How do you check this? Take the sanction letter, take few cases of what is the interest rate in the parameter, just tick it, that's all, right? How do you find out the interest rate? There is something called as the interest rate history report, which you can generate from the menu. If you generate that, it will give you what all the accounts, what is the interest rate applied, the effective date, everything will be given there. You simply take that, take the sanction file, just tick it, okay? Sanction means the original sanction, signed by the manager. Then, method of computation of interest. I told you minimum One transaction every category must be verified. By verifying that, what happens is if there is a computation mistake, for example, stock, what are the methods of valuation of stock? LIFO, FIFO, weighted average, right? But in your accounting policy, if you are declaring LIFO and you are actually applying FIFO, there is a sure issue. Similarly, in a bank, for example, if there is a daily interest calculation, but what you calculate is coming out to be a different computational method, you must raise and identify the materiality of that on the overall performance of the branch, right? Then service charges configuration. For example, today if you ask for bank statement exceeding 6 months, they charge you money, right? If you apply for a duplicate credit card or debit card, service charge, right? If your check bounces, there is a service charge. This is all income for the branch, income for the bank. As auditors, you have to protect the income. You will be fighting from your personal case, that is different. But here you have to see if it is properly taken. So for that, there are instruction booklets which will tell you what is the service charge rate applicable from what date. Generally, these are fixed at the head office, but enabling that may be branch to branch cases, sometimes one account to account cases. For example, they may waive off penal interest. Waiving of penal interest is simply one click box, right? Very dangerous, no? So you need to understand, you take what is called as the parameter change history. It will tell you from what date they removed the click. Otherwise you can go and remove the click any date, no? So it will tell you what date the click has been removed, or if it has at all been set. That you can compare with the terms of sanction. Terms of sanction will say, for example, for non-submission of stock statements, apply 2% penalty. For non-submission of financial statements, apply 1% penalty. Something like this will be there. You need to make sure whether it is applied or not, right? Then expenses, there could be various like interest calculation of head office account, etc. That you can simply, again, it's part of the test calculation that you can do. Okay, I think we are really running out of time, right? Okay, I have discussed the basics, right? You understood how to go about doing? Any questions so far? Any questions so far? Yes or no? Is it clear? Sure? Please do try it, it's not very difficult, right? These are the various parameters, I already explained them. Parameters at global level, which I told you, like the bank PLR, branch level, account level, then NPA computation, standalone environment, branch environment, IRAC also coming into the same classification. Mind you, with regard to security classification, you will have to rely upon physical documentation, valuation reports. Don't think that all things will be picked up automatically by the computer. No, right? Legal opinion, right? Obtaining the continuation of debt, acknowledgement of debt, right? All this has been explained in the morning. Letter of acknowledgement of debt, it's a very important requirement of Limitation Act, right? So similarly, all this you will have to physically verify. Documentation defects are something computer will not be able to help, because I can go and record anything there in the system, but you will have to take a sample and make sure, take a reasonably good sample and verify. It is not like interest product calculation. Is it clear? Right. Then you can get all this from the system. You can generate whole lot of statistics from the banking system. Like, for example, with regard to accounting, advances, category, priority, sector wise, how many deposits, priority, sector wise, how many deposits, count of deposits, sanction, how much total amount sanctioned on every area, disbursement, all this can be available from the system. Okay, this is already explained. There are certain important things you need to understand. For example, interest rate can be fixed or floating. You was just mentioning about teaser rates, right? Fixed or floating. Fixed or floating is one checkbox. So if you are my friend, simply put like this. That's all. Even though there are internal audits and everything is there, but as part of your work, if you can identify something, please do raise it as an issue. Similarly, agri season. In case of agricultural advances, the interest rate, the moratorium is all decided based upon the which kind of crop it is, how is the cropping season, etc. Right? Now, obviously here also the right kind of selection matters a lot. So that can be in the system. Simple. Just talking about borrower group, if one credit card balance has fallen overdue, even though they may have 10 super fantastic accounts which are maintained, but because of that, the entire borrower group turns NPA, right? So, how do you identify a borrower group? That's a problem. Generally, this is available in the system wherein you can mark which borrower account or group customer ID it will get linked to. So, you can take few samples. Large accounts you have to verify 100%. Small accounts you can simply just check certain samples, right? Then similarly, moratorium input, NPA, lien marking, date of NPA. Now, this date of NPA is a very important determinator for determining, for example, in this year whether it has turned doubtful asset or doubtful asset 2 or loss asset or whatever, isn't it? What is all this based upon? The date of NPA, which actually we've done the previous audit. Supposing during the year there has been a migration. What is a migration? And in that they have made a small mistake in the year of NPA. So DA1 will continue to remain DA1, right? Or can there be a situation where it was substandard last year, remains substandard this year? Only one case, when restructuring or reschedulement has happened, then only in that case alone there is a possibility that you have to look what are the terms, what is provision, right? So please make sure that unless and until you take certain NPA dates and do verify them. And certain caution areas, see in an LFAR, how many of you seen the LFAR? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, that's all? No? You have not seen the LFAR? Today, please go to the internet, download LFAR, otherwise we are talking about blind man and elephant. I am describing something, you are thinking, okay, maybe that is LFAR. Please don't do that. An LFAR is a questionnaire, right? It is called the long form audit report questionnaire, which has got specific questionnaire on specific aspects. Did we have a LFAR session? Yes, you had some, I'm sure somebody would have touched upon that, right? So please do download it. Those are very important questions to understand internal control working in a branch. Very important conditions, right? So how to use the system for that is what I am giving here. For example, these are some of the heads in LFAR. Credit appraisal. Is it following the instructions of the branch? Is it, are they doing the right things? Please understand, if you have done a mistake in appraising a loan improperly, you can be rest assured it's an NPA. Quite possible, isn't it? Right? So, credit appraisal is a very important internal control. How do you do that? There are various internal health classifications in some banks, if they still adopt. So, you need to look at how is this controlled. It may not come within the direct purview of your account analysis. But if you take the appraisal documents and try to take one sample, you will be able to understand the complete way it is done. Then, sanction disbursement beyond delegated authority. I told you certain ways of looking at it. You can generate a report. Various reports from your reports module, wherein you can say beyond sanction limit or beyond drawing power. See, sanction limit is one, drawing power is another. Your outstanding should be within first drawing power, isn't it? So, please make sure that that is taken care of. Then documentation, completeness, deficiencies, lien marking. Every software today provides for status of documentation within the system. So, if you take what we call as the customer master profile, account master profile, it will contain, you can give the status. You can go to several pages. But do take a good example and run it through. It might take you 2 hours to analyze about say 5 or 6 cases. It's worth it. Right? So, you'll be able to understand how much of internal control is there at the branch. Similarly, I told you already about this stock book debt statements obtained, accounts inspection, etc., etc. Now, this DP is maintained within the system. But how is DP calculated? Based upon the primary security valuation. Primary security valuation, how is it created? Somebody takes the stock statement, book debt statement, keys it in. Right? If you simply look at the stock statement values in the system, and all of them are nearly the same, is it suspicion or not? It's a good case of suspicion, right? Please don't just go by the stock statements alone. Take the financial statements and see the performance over the last year and current year, right? And decide based upon all these parameters the need for a physical inspection. What is physical inspection? He would say, I got 10 crore stock. You go and see their address is also not there, right? So it is physical inspection is the best proof. You may still need to take it in certain cases. And must analyze significant variation in gross ratios. All this I have already spoken. Short review, review pending, DP cases, etc., etc. Right? Similarly, tracking of income. I told you very parameters. I just given some examples here, like something called as value dating in fixed deposits. What is value dating? Let us say your fixed deposit with the bank expired on 25th of February. You remember it today. You go to the bank, right? You say, I want to renew this deposit. From what date they are supposed to renew? From today. That is what is called as backdating. The value date which they put will be the backdated. They are not supposed to do that, right? Banks do permit some amount of leniency, but then mind you, this is not supposed to be done. I can come after 2 years and say, oh, I forgot to renew. Please give me interest for 2 years. Anyway, money is lying with you. Can I give? No question, right? So all that you can detect through what is called as value dating reports. The system will generate a value dating. It's part of the exception reports, right? Value dating report, and you can identify. So similarly for each of these parameters, stop payment, then penal interest application, EMI interest application, commitment charges, everything you can generate reports. Okay. LFR objectives, there are various things. First of all, how many of you done a ATM audit? How many of you seen inside an ATM? Did you break it open? The ATM is actually a pretty robust machine, but it also has its own problems. First of all, I am sure all of you drawn cash from ATM. Even if you don't want a receipt, do you hear a printer sound? Yes or no? It is called as journal printing. Every activity that you do on the ATM, even if your PIN number is not correct, you will still hear the printer sound. Have you seen? Every activity that you do on the ATM will get recorded internally in something called as a journal. If you go and ask at the branch for the journal log of the ATM, they will give you some rolled. Of course, you should know how to interpret it, right? But it can give you certain very valuable insights. For example, ATMs also suffer from soiled note problem. What's a soiled note problem? Sometimes you may get excess cash or short cash, or instead of 100 rupee denomination, 500 rupee. Other way around also. It is very rare, but it does happen. All that is done at the time of what is called as a cash replenishment exercise. What is cash replenishment? See, ATM is not Bhagavan, no. It can't keep on giving cash. Somebody has to load it. That loading is done by an external agency called as the CRA, Cash Replenishment Agency. At the time of cash replenishment, the bank officer is supposed to be present there and he has to sign a report of CR. Right? If they detect a shortage, obviously if the machine has given you a little more money or less money, there will be a shortage or excess. They put it to something called as the ATM cash suspense account. Please do look for that ATM cash suspense account, see why it happened, how many times it happened, because it could be a fraud. Right? So please make sure that is so. All that is when you are verifying cash, you have to verify cash in a bank when you are going, right? ATM cash is also supposed to be verified. Is it clear? Anyway, it will be part of the scroll, right? Then, of course, cash in excess of limits, which you can very easily find out through the system itself. You don't have to go through everything. Exception reports, I just showed you in advances, book balancing, controls over outsourcing. CRA is outsourced. Example, what is CRA? It is done by an outsourcing agency. You need to understand what controls are there over the outsourcing agency from a branch perspective, right? you may need to comment upon any lapses there. Similarly, Nostro account, old entries, these old entries, age-wise analysis, etc. is again part of your LFAR. Similarly, this what we spoke earlier, all this also comes, but only thing what I want to tell you is there is a history which can be available for most of these transactions which you can get. Okay, clearing, every clearing account will have a reconciliation account, right? As per RBI norms, there are norms within which time all this reconciliation is supposed to happen. If it exceeds that, it is considered very serious today. You are supposed to make sure that you review all these accounts, all the critical accounts. As I told you, the clearing adjustment accounts could be reading nil on the date of your audit, but please do go through that and identify any issues there. Similarly, you will find quite a lot of things like the OCC dishonor or TOD reports. How many of you are clear with clearing? So some of you find it little heavy, but then don't worry. A clearing, as I told you, how does it arise? When there are two entities and they are having transactions between them, they need to reconcile, right? So it could be a GL level reconciliation. It could be quite a lot of areas. These are some of the areas of reconciliations. Subsidiary to GL. When can it happen? In a core architecture, only if certain accounts are outside, certain subsidiary accounts or ledgers are outside the GL. Then you could have the, outside the core, it could have the problem. So that is where you need to look at this. Then RTGS Swift, ATM switch suspense and cash suspense. What is the ATM switch suspense? When you do a transaction at an ATM, sometimes the transaction may not get recognized. What does it mean? It will give you cash, right? But when it goes and posts at the day end, it may not be able to match the account number. Very rarely it happens. But if it does happen, it will automatically come in an account called ATM switch suspense account. It should always be reconciled within 72 hours maximum. But banks do carry it for long, but make sure it is getting done. Clearing suspense, parking accounts, what is called as SOL IDs, SOL ID reconciliation. What is SOL ID reconciliation? Intra-branch transactions. For example, internet banking, you go to another ATM, do a transaction there. I have to do it. I have to do something about it, no? In my accounting, right? Similarly, you go to another branch and you do a transaction there. It has to hit my branch. So all this happens through what is called as SOL IDs. So if there is an error in the SOL ID, or if I am not able to identify the transaction ID, there could be an issue. It could go and land up in the suspense. So you need to reconcile that. Okay. Again, exception reports I already shown you. Don't worry about too much of graphic being written here. I am just giving you a lot of examples. But you have to use your sense when you go to the branch to identify what's required. Okay, we are nearing, don't worry, end. Right? Then certain things like KYC. I can see some of you are. KYC? What is KYC? Why do you need to know your customer? Not credit rating. He could be a terrorist. How does he know whether you are a genuine person or you are actually your friend's name you are putting and doing something? So KYC is a critical criterion now under what is also called as the anti-money laundering rules. Right? What is money laundering? Benami transactions. Right? So it is very important that these controls are applied. You have to take certain samples and see that it is being properly done. For that, there are KYC reports are generated. There are various parameters which you can get. Similarly, duplicate FD printing. In all this inventory is maintained within the system itself in most cases, right? So when the DD is printed, the DD number that has to be put in the printer appears on the screen. So which is the inventory is controlled, right? So there are enough controls, but you still need to see if cancel DDs, cancel checkbooks or whatever are properly maintained. Similar control is with debit card PIN returns. What is a PIN return? If let us say they deliver a PIN, You know that the PIN and the debit card will come through separate post. In fact, it comes from two different sections altogether, right? In fact, the credit card is generated by an outsourcing agency, whereas a PIN is generated by an internal branch operations team generally, right? So it will come through two different, and let us say they find a door locked when they are delivering the PIN. What will they do? They will not return it to the same cell. It will be returned to the nearest applicable branch, right? So the branch keeps that, and they are supposed to chase you and give you the PIN. If they don't do that, they are supposed to, in a structured manner, destroy the PIN mailers, right? There is a destruction register which is supposed to be maintained at the branch, or there is a return which at least it depends upon branch to, bank to bank how it is done. But your job is to take and understand how they are maintaining this. Sometimes if you open the drawer of one of the person, all the PIN mailers will be lying there. Please raise an issue, because it can result in frauds. Then again you can go on talking. Okay, contingent liability again. Contingent liability is a below the line balance sheet, comes below that, right? But at the same time, there are enough controls at the transaction level within the CBS, right? How it gets maker checker, everything is built into the system, right? So when you do that, take these ledgers, take the original guarantee, see if there is a information on crystallization. If you call for the file inspection is a very important part of branch audit. They told you that? Sure, they told you, you might be, right? So when you take that file, the file will contain any crystallization of guarantee. Even if they are not given, as part of your final letter before signing, what is called as a management representation letter, please include a statement saying that none of the guarantees or any contingent liabilities are crystallized, because it's something which could be, may have materialized, which need to be accounted and provided for, but you may not know about it, right? Okay, and then there could be various other things, because today's bank is not just a bank, isn't it? If you go to a bank, they sell gold, they sell credit cards. When you are going to deposit cash, somebody would say insurance policy, insurance policy. And what is going to be tomorrow? They will say nappies, nappies, nappies. Baby nappy? Tomorrow bank could be selling that. We don't know. I am telling you that. So what is called as multi-segment operations? In a multi-segment operation, if the same software is used, is there a risk? There is a risk, right? So when it comes to multi-segment banks, this is something you don't worry at your level. Just know this. Of course, your principal will take care of it. Then treasury accounts, derivative accounts, these are very sensitive items. Okay. Tax audit. How many of you have done tax audits? Bank tax audits? Bank tax audit is easy. Hardly 4 items is what you have to reply. That's all, right? Otherwise, tax audit is nightmare. This is very easy. Only thing is you just need to ensure the accuracy of these figures. That you can query from the system and get it. Similarly, there are several certificates as part of the audit that the auditor will have to sign. These values obviously come from the books of accounts. So only thing they may require certain, some of these certificates will be direct balances, but some of them may require little analysis, right? So you just need to make sure that you use the system to get those values right. Okay. You will also come across 2 questionnaires called the Ghosh and the Gilani committee questionnaire. How many of you have seen already all this? Ghosh Gilani committee. How do you see this? How did you audit this? You didn't audit it, just saw it. These are questionnaires which are pretty exhaustive in nature, right? And some of them may not be even auditable. That's a fact of life, because these are a little redundant. I am not sure if it is still continuing this audit, still there. But the auditor is actually committing on the state of controls through this questionnaire. This will be in the form of question with a yes or no or not applicable. But please do go through them, and so you can always have one of your branch officers to help you fill it up, but do test check some of these controls. And some of them where you can't give, for example, during the year, has the board been displayed? For example, there could be one question like this. At least you said at the time when you visited it is displayed. if it is there, but at least look for the board, right? Is there a guy holding the gun outside and waiting for you, right? There could be, whether the gun was licensed. All this is part of certain audits, right? It is, of course, don't spend, I mean, you just need to, even though the responsibility is there, you just need to look at it. And certain things will be not applicable. For example, it will contain a question on microfilming of records and vouchers. Microfilming is an outdated concept today. Because the questionnaire is outdated, don't think that yes, no, not applicable, right? If not applicable is not there, please say not applicable, right? You need not say, oh, there is only yes and no, what do I do? Not necessary, okay? Okay, then certifications I have spoken. Of course, there are other controls which you will have to talk about in LFAR, which are password sharing, ATM control, PIN control. Also check for version. I know boss is here. Right? All these also are hard copies printed, right? Data accuracy. These are controls, you just look at it and you can easily verify them, very easily, right? You just need to have common sense, which I am sure you have in abundance, right? But use it there, right? And of course documentation, reporting. So in summary, the important thing is a CBS audit, branch audit, is one of the most beautiful opportunities, especially for you who are undergoing training, to upgrade your skills like nobody's business. Let me tell you that. If you miss this opportunity, you have lost a very, very important CV enabling opportunity. Let me tell you that. Your capabilities, you can't get this opportunity again and again, mind you. So take it very seriously. Even if you have to, do a late sitting or whatever is required to be done, make sure you take it in most seriousness and try to look at smart ways of doing the audit. Not that you have to necessarily go through the traditional checking. No. Think about how I can utilize the system and do this audit. Is it okay? So good luck.
So friends, this was the program on bank audit for students. Now, if you have understood, the first 3 sessions were the systems or situations where it was being used even in the manual system. Now we have requested Mr. Vittalraj to explain how the information technology will help us as professionals do the audit. The basic reason is, though the banking industry has been there for more than few hundreds of years, of late, maybe last few years, last 10-15 years, the Indian banking has shifted from manual system to computerized environment. And as you all become chartered accountants in maybe few years to come, this will be the only location or way in which you can do the audit. And for you to be satisfied as a professional in signing a report, you have to have a huge knowledge on this. I request all of you to give a wonderful round of applause to Sri Vittalraj for his wide coverage, taking us through all these details and explaining various features of the systems and audit. Where is that book? No, that notebook, yeah. No, some notes, some students were volunteers and all that book, that list. Yeah. No, this one is here. Friends, for this bank audit seminar, we've been planning for some time, but since I've been from Hyderabad, so the Sicasa committee members have put in a lot of efforts. So the Sicasa team is, Lijil Lakshman is one of the members. Lijil, stand up. Rohit, Mohit, Venkat Raghavan, Sonia, Raghuram, Shruti, all of them have worked very hard for this program. And the volunteers are Anudam, Srikant, Maithili, Narsimhan, Saurabh. So I also request all of you to give a good round of applause for them, for all the efforts they have put. This is not possible that we have a program and we don't have Sicasa students to sponsor and support. Now friends, in terms of programs, we want to do a lot of activities for the students, and this is the beginning in terms of the conferences, since I have taken over only in February. Next month we tend to have a program on XBRL and revised schedule 6 and a couple of other programs which we planned for April and May. So we would also like to have lecture meetings and a lot of other activities. So I would request all of you to give your details in terms of your cell numbers, email IDs to our Sicasa team. So they'll be able to keep you updated with various things that are happening here in terms of communication. And since we don't have the opportunity to print and post our newsletter, we are coming up with a e-newsletter shortly. President is visiting Hyderabad, and we tend to have a e-newsletter released through President's hand. And once that is done, we'll definitely be in touch with all the student community on e-newsletter to update you on various things that happen. So in terms of the program, I'd like to give a memento to Sri Vittal Raj for his wonderful presentation on the topic, and I would request all of you to give good round of applause again.
Sorry, I forgot to give my email ID. You can just note it down. I would urge quite a lot of you to please.
And friends, we have tea waiting for you. Once you're through, we can have tea and leave the premises. Thank you.